booked the overnight train from Budapest to Bucharest because it was cheaper than flying, and because I like sleeper trains, honestly. There's something about being moved through the dark while you sleep that I find genuinely restful. I'd done the route once before, 13 hours, one border crossing in the middle of the night, and you wake up somewhere completely different. I had a 4-berth compartment to myself when the train pulled out of Budapest. 2 berths folded down on each side, worn red upholstery, a small table by the window, and a sliding door with a curtain. I made up the bottom berth on my side, left the others folded, and settled in with a book and the lights low. The corridor outside was quiet. Most of the carriage seemed to be sleeping already. I must have dozed off with the book still open, because I woke to the sound of the compartment door sliding. I checked my phone just after 1 a.m. We were stopped or slowing down. I could feel the change in the rhythm. A conductor's voice came from the corridor, low, speaking Hungarian to someone. Then the door slid fully open, and an elderly man stepped in, with the conductor behind him, gesturing to the bottom berth on the opposite side. I murmured something polite, sorry, half asleep, the universal noise you make when someone joins your space at an odd hour, and shifted slightly to give him room. He didn't look at me. He was perhaps 70, wearing a dark wool coat that he didn't take off, carrying nothing that I could see, no bag, no case. He sat on the edge of the opposite berth, then lay down facing the wall, coat and all, and within what felt like seconds, his breathing had slowed into the rhythm of someone deeply asleep. I lay back down myself. I remember thinking it was strange that he hadn't taken his coat off, and even stranger that he'd fallen asleep so completely and so quickly. But neither of those things felt alarming at the time. People do strange things at 1 a.m. on trains. I was nearly asleep again myself when he said something. It was a short sentence. Hungarian. I recognized the sound of the language even though I don't speak a word of it. He said it without turning over, facing the wall, in the flat, unhurried tone of someone talking in their sleep. And here's the part I have turned over many times since. I understood it. Not translated it, understood it. The way you understand something in a dream, where meaning arrives without passing through language at all. What he said, what I understood him to have said, was, "You're sitting where she used to sit." That was all. He didn't say it to me particularly. He said it to the wall, or to no one, the way people sometimes speak when they're already mostly asleep. I lay there for a while after that, fully awake now, listening to his breathing continue at the same slow, steady rhythm. I didn't say anything back. I'm still not sure what I would have said. I must have fallen asleep eventually, because the next thing I remember is daylight, pale winter light through the window, the trains slowing, fields and small stations passing by. I sat up. The opposite berth was empty. Not just empty, made up, blanket folded, pillow placed, exactly as it had been before anyone got on. No indentation, no displaced sheet, nothing. The kind of empty that looks like no one has touched it. I told myself he'd got off somewhere in the night, at the border maybe, during the passport check I'd slept through. That happens. People get on and off at odd hours on overnight trains, and conductors remake the berths quickly between stops. It was a reasonable explanation, and I mostly believed it until I went to find the conductor an hour or so later to ask what time we'd be arriving. I mentioned the other passenger, the man who'd got on around 1 a.m. at, I didn't know the station name, somewhere before the border. The conductor, a different one from the night before, checked his passenger manifest on a small handheld device. He said the compartment was booked for one passenger only, me. No one else had been assigned to it. No one else had boarded that carriage during the night according to his records. And he said this carefully, like he wasn't quite sure how to phrase it. No tickets had been checked for that compartment between Budapest and the border at all. The previous conductor's shift had ended just before 1 a.m., and the records showed the handover happening at a station we hadn't actually stopped at. I asked if there was another passenger anywhere in the carriage who might have seen something. Anyone awake around 1 a.m. There was one other person in the carriage that night, traveling the whole route alone, like me, 2 compartments down. The conductor knocked for me and translated my question into Romanian. The answer came without much hesitation. He had been awake on and off most of the night. He didn't sleep well on trains, and the corridor outside my compartment had been completely quiet the whole time. No door opening, no conductor's voice, nothing. I didn't push it further. What would I have asked? I went back to my compartment and sat by the window, watching the Romanian countryside go past. Flat fields under thin snow, occasional small stations, the kind of landscape that looks the same for a very long time and then changes all at once. I kept thinking about the sentence, "You're sitting where she used to sit." I hadn't moved seats. I'd sat in the same place the whole journey. I was in Bucharest for 5 days for the family matter I'd come for. My grandmother's affairs, mostly paperwork. The practical aftermath of someone's life ending. On the 3rd day, while going through a box of her old documents with my aunt, I found a photograph. My grandmother, much younger, sitting in a train compartment. The same kind of compartment, the old style, the same red upholstery pattern. On the back, written in pencil, was a date from the 1970s and a single word, Keleti, Budapest's station. My aunt told me the story without my asking, the way people do when they're going through a relative's things and everything reminds them of something. My grandmother had taken that exact route once, decades ago, traveling to meet the man she would later marry, my grandfather. She'd told the story many times, how she'd been nervous, how she hadn't slept, how an old man had got into her compartment in the middle of the night somewhere near the border and said something to her in Hungarian that she, a Romanian speaker who didn't know a word of Hungarian, had somehow understood completely. My aunt didn't remember what the old man had said, or she said she didn't. She remembered that my grandmother had never forgotten it, and that she'd never told anyone the words exactly, just that it had felt, she'd said, like being told something true about her life before she'd lived enough of it to know it was true. She married my grandfather 8 months later. She sat in that same kind of compartment many times after that, on visits back to Hungary to see her own family, for the rest of her life. I don't know if it was the same compartment. The carriages get reassigned, refurbished, the numbers change. I don't know if it matters. What I keep thinking about is the sentence, "You're sitting where she used to sit," and the fact that I understood it the same way she apparently had, instantly, without translation, as though the understanding belonged to the place and not to either of us. I took the train back to Budapest 5 days later. Different carriage, different compartment number, but the same line, the same route, the same hour passing through the same stretch near the border around 1 a.m. I stayed awake for that part. Nothing happened. The corridor stayed quiet. No one came in. I'm not sure if I was relieved or not. I think I might have wanted to hear it again. Properly, this time. Awake enough to ask who she was.